Anita here and welcome to, well, the Inktober roundup. That's how we're gonna call it, I suppose. Basically the video that comes at the very end of Inktober, a bit later than expected, but still, you know, still 2 weeks after Inktober ends is not that bad in my opinion. I try my best here. But yeah, so this is basically me just showing you guys what we've been going through for the whole Inktober, what I've painted, just kind of like a showcase, last thing. So before we actually start getting into the paintings, I have this stuck here on the side. It looks so big. I love how big it looks. I would like to make a little plug-in here, shameless advertising, because I have opened the Redbubble store, especially for my prints, and all the Inktober prints are now available there in a variety of sizes, so you can go pick them up if you would like. On top of that, I also have an Etsy store, and as you know, and a while ago I made a change, so now my Etsy store only offers original work, just because it's easier. So Etsy store has original work. Almost all of them are available, almost all my Inktober pieces are available on Etsy as well. So you can go there if you want an original, and I promise... Oh no, wait, there's another thing. Another thing I wanted to plug in at the very beginning, and that is that I have actually, I have a Twitter account. Well, I had one for a very long time, but recently I've just started loving it. And I've never loved it before, so if you would like to follow me on Twitter, that would be really nice. I'm looking forward to actually posting there, because Facebook Facebook makes me pay to reach my followers, which is not nice, Facebook, let's face it. Okay, so I promise this is the last of the plugins, and now I'm going to jump into the showcase, and later we're gonna talk about you know, have I actually achieved my goals? Look at this stack. Isn't this satisfying? I mean, it kind of reminds me how satisfying it was to see the stack of prepared pre-cut paper, because before I started Inktober, I did some things. I prepared sketches for every single one of those pieces. I pre-cut the paper so that it was already set there, and so that, you know, things would be a bit easier on me. And so, yeah, that was the stack of paper, and now it's all filled with illustrations, which is just amazing. Okay, so I won't be talking about every single one of those illustrations, because honestly, I don't feel there is a need to talk about every single one of them, just because I made for majority videos, and if you're interested in any of those illustrations, I finally made a playlist out of all of them, so you can just you know, if you hear a number and you like the picture, you can just pop into that playlist. It will be linked in the description, and you can see that video. So yeah, first things first. Inktober was a time for me when I just picked ink, pretty much, for the first time. Let's face it, I painted last year something with ink, a painting, which I really loved. But I've never really painted with ink, if you get what I mean. It's just, I just played with it. It's like, hey, an extra, you know, art supply, yay! And then I forgot about it, because watercolor is still my love. So this was actually a whole month dedicated to me getting to know ink. That was a challenge. So for me, actually looking back now, it's really interesting to see that you can really see where I start to get more comfortable with ink. So this is day one, and I remember I was really nervous. You know what? Let's put it like this, in the middle nicely. This probably won't be edited much, so you know, that's how I do my videos. You get the unedited Anita. So yeah, this was day one. And day one I was really nervous. I felt a lot of pressure because as the first video, the first painting, it's the start of everything, very exciting, but also I don't know the medium at all. I really didn't know it. I didn't know, I was so nervous filling in the white, the big black space. I actually used my smallest brush, just because I was picking up too much ink onto the brush, in the very beginning, and I was very nervous about it because I felt like it would just drop all over the place in a matter of seconds. So this is my, I believe this was a garden witch, and I especially wanted to try here the background, black background and white details. Really love that that effect. Another thing I've noticed with time, I'm sorry I'm stuck on this first painting for so long, but it will go faster hopefully. I've noticed as well that with time I started using less and less white details, because another big thing that I've learned is during Inktober, because I'm using only one color, I've never really thought about tonal value, and working with one color really taught me more about tones. And at some point I've noticed that because I had so much variety in tones, I really didn't need that extra white pop, you know, of the sparkle. Sometimes it was needed, but most of the time it wasn't. So that was a big surprise. I really love how the wooden background, this is a board that I just have laying around. I just felt, let's just have, because wood looks so nice against black and white. Such a nice neutral background. So yeah, so this was my day one. I feel like now it's uneven. So we're just gonna be splitting it both ways so that my balance is set. So this is my day number 2, and this is a royal witch. I have to remember the titles for these. Most of the time I don't care for titles. That's the reason why I'm especially that there's 31 of these pictures, you know, I'm getting confused. So this is my royal witch, and still struggling. I was struggling, and I started experimenting with getting different values from my ink, and you barely can see it here, but there is a background. There are roses in the background. And the reason why this background is so light is because I did the opposite of here. So I wanted to have try something different, you know. Experimenting begins. And that's pretty much all I can say about this one. Day number 3, I wanted to have splatters. I really like the white details on black background, and I wanted to use the same thing on this one. It's very uncomfortable to stand here. I'm on a standing desk at the moment. I need to get one of those microphone arms, because my microphone is low, so I have to kind of bend to it, and because of that my back hurts. I feel, seriously, this is such a Granny Anita moment. Anyway, let's go back to the paintings. I'm trying to focus here. So yeah, that's also another, just me experimenting, really getting to know the medium, because I I really didn't know much about anything really about ink. Day 4 was my first demonetization. You know what I mean. So that was a shock for me, that the video was demonetized. And but the picture itself was kind of it wasn't a breakthrough yet, but I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with what I was doing. I used some patterns. I was starting to use a little bit of a gradient washes, so just dropping ink into like a wet on wet kind of thing. I was practicing more with getting different tones out of the ink, and actually being on top of those tones, because sometimes, you know, so that it wasn't so accidental, so that I actually knew how much ink to add to water to get that tone. Yeah, I really love that one. This one is actually inspired by Iraville. If you know her, you will recognize she painted something similar, I think last year for Inktober. I think, I'm not sure. I remember seeing that she had those cats. It's not the same idea, obviously, but it's inspired, definitely inspired by her. Okay, so day 5 was for me a breakthrough. That's when I started feeling that I really am getting the values. I'm so in love with this picture. It's so simple. Like, compared to, for example, this one here, there's so much going on in this one, whereas this one is just, there is a big I actually picked this this sketch because I was tired after 4 days and I wanted something simpler to work with. That's why I picked this one. And I think this is probably, I wouldn't be able to say which one is my favorite, but that's my top 5 for sure. I love this picture. Next we have the Merchant Witch, and I'm experimenting more. So in this case here, I was experimenting a little bit with the fur patterns, the curls, the patterns on the pillows, just it was all things I knew, but there were some like little glimpses of stuff that I've never used before. And here it was first time when I used something that this glow over here, that this picture is all about that glow and all about starting to use ink as for texture here. I was getting tired with just flat black and white gray washes, and I wanted to use something more fun, so that's why we have that effect here. That was the biggest, the shine effect was my biggest breakthrough in this picture. Picture number 7, day 7. This is definitely another top 5 for me, simply because, I don't know, if you notice, the simpler pictures are top 5s for me for some reason. I don't know why, perhaps because there was less to concentrate on, there was less detail, then, you know, I had more time to focus on other stuff. In this case, I wanted to use similar effect to this glow from the Merchant Witch to make fur. So it's kind of like an inverted idea. And I also wanted to use, try my hand at crystals in black and white, because it's of course a different, you don't have the color to back you up. You have to work with the tonal value. So, and I love her face. This is the most pudgy face. I just absolutely love her face. So absolutely love it. Winter Witch. Day 8 was the first day I took a break from videos. It was something I've decided to do because I just needed a break. It became very obvious to me that I wouldn't be able to follow every single day. Perhaps next year, who knows? But for this year, I just wouldn't be able to do it. I needed a break. And so I've used this picture here just to also try something new. I wanted to kind of make it seem like she was afraid of sunlight. And so I wanted to use that to feather out blackness with pencil, with fine liners. I didn't want to use washes. I didn't want to use blurry washes. I wanted to use a bit more lines, I suppose. I don't know how to call hatching. I think you can call it hatching. So that I really like this picture as well. The stockings. It's also another very like a simpler idea. Works very fine for me. So day 9. I don't remember exactly why I wanted to draw these cats. I think I saw them on Instagram somewhere, and I just fell in love with the idea of inky cats. And this was my first attempt because what I saw on I think this was on Instagram. I saw a lady who was just dropping ink into a wash, into water, and things would appear, okay? She would just drop ink in soap, like different amounts in different places, that would turn into a cat. And I loved it. Obviously not my skill level, definitely not for a beginner. So this here, I remember, and you can watch that video because I was so extremely anxious while painting this. It was just something about the whole painting process that was so stressful to me. I've decided, no, I can't deal with this. I have to have some control over my pictures, and this was pretty much the result of having a bit more control. So this is kind of a set for day 9 because I made 2 illustrations. Day 10 was it's not a failed illustration, but it's a failed experiment because I wanted to make a no light picture. So a picture without a light source. Usually I use for night scenes like this one here where she's flying in her little teapot, teacup. She's flying through the air, there are clouds in the background, it's nighttime, of course. And normally I would use some kind of lantern to bring that glow to the character. But in this case, I didn't want that. The only light details here are the lines. That's the... Wait, I am knocking stuff off the table. So the only light are the lines that are, you know, showing movement. Why I failed it? Too much contrast for a night scene. That's pretty much that. It's not really that. I really like the illustrations, just that it's not exactly what I wanted it to become. And the fact is that I didn't realize what the problem was until I finished and I read the comments, or before comments, I don't even know, but general consensus, is that even a word? Hopefully it is, was that, you know, there was just too much contrast for a character that is not surrounded by light. Another big breakthrough for me was using white in pictures. The whole character here, and this is a fox witch, no, candy witch, candy fox witch, something like that. Her dress and her hair is white, or very light color. That was a big breakthrough for me because I naturally go for, I want to keep adding. I want to keep adding washes. This is a very good example for that, where there's just like, I keep adding, till it's just, there's white and there's way too much dark in here. Maybe not the best example, but you get the idea. And here it's actually, I had to stop myself from adding too much contrast because this was supposed to be a very, very light fabric. Her hair is supposed to be very light, and I think I really achieved what I wanted. I love this picture, definitely top 5 as well. Although if we're going to keep following, there will probably be more than that top 5 than 5 pictures, I think. But yeah, I really like this one, the Candy Witch, although I think it will be much more fun to have in color, just because of all the different candy that you barely see. Another top 5 for me. Another top 5, just because it's such a simple picture. There's almost nothing happening in the background. The only pattern here really that stands out is the plaid. That's where my love for plaid started happening. Definitely October was the month of plaid. I just love painting plaid. There's just something so satisfying about painting plaid. But here I wanted the animal to be the source of light. So I wanted the owl to shine, and I was practicing making the character have, you know, shadows in proper places in ink. That's it. Love this picture. So another kitten, I started using the cats to kind of have days off, I suppose. Also because after the last cat, I really wanted to paint another one. So this time I knew kind of what I was doing. So it's a similar idea. I was splattering a little bit, big problem with splattering. I don't splatter. I can't, I don't like the lack of control when that you have with splattering. So maybe something for next year as well. Like that one as well. The bee queen, the bee witch. I really liked the concept of the bee. This is something I've drawn in my sketchbook in the summer, and it was inspired by my garden because there's tons of bees in my garden, just getting drawn to lavender. And so this is basically just a bit more humanoid bee of the same design. But the biggest thing here was the wings and the background. I wasn't sure what to do with the background from the beginning, so background was actually last minute addition that turned out really well because it's a free-handed one. I didn't sketch it, which is another big thing for me. Once again, I do not like I like to have control over my paintings. It is my point. And one thing I wasn't sure at first were if the wings were dark enough. But I've read some comments under this video, and one of them mentioned that the wings are supposed to be almost transparent, so it's actually, you know, perfect amount of color for them. And I agree. I love how, you know, you can see the details through the wings. Really love it. Let's see, let's put it here. Oh yeah, day 15, another day off for me, off from videos, and so I've decided to do something that I wasn't sure if I could pull off. I usually leave those ideas for days that I don't have to record on, because, you know, just in case. I always want to have a good video anyway. I know you guys like when I make mistakes, so, you know, we can learn together. It's more interesting content, I suppose. But in this case, I wanted to see if I could draw. I could draw an illustration using fineliners only. You know, just using hatching patterns, just the sketching, and I love it. I really love it, and I started using more of those sketch lines in later drawings, paintings. It's really funny to see how I start combining certain things, like adding more ideas. It's really, it's cool to observe that after the fact. Yeah, this one here is just, there's nothing really particularly out of ordinary about this one. This wasn't a, how do you call that? This wasn't an experiment. I just wanted to, I think so at least. I know for a fact that I was thinking about different ways to present the pointy hat. Almost every single one of my witches has a pointy hat except one, and there's a reason for it. I will talk about it later as well. So here her hat is in the form of clouds. Another simple idea, the zombie witch, or ghost witch, or some kind of, you know, zombie ghost witch. I really wanted to have something a bit more spooky, a bit more creepy. Another video that got demonetized. Here is like probably everything I loved in the past week. There's plaid background, there's the hatching around the edges. I really like this picture. I love how the bunny stands out from everything else. Most of the time, there was this one picture where to this point, like till the very end, I forgot that the main character, was holding a cup. So I wanted to make sure that since she's holding a bunny, that this time this bunny would stand out. And that's why he's black. Day 19. I was watching a Ghibli movie, so it's full of suit sprites, goodness. And I really loved the hair and the plaid hat. I absolutely adore the plaid hats. Day 20 is my urban witch, which was supposed to be very grungy. I was trying to splatter, but I can't splatter to save my life. So while I am very happy with this picture, you know, I feel like it could have a little bit more bigger splatter than all just this randomness. Day 21 was the last video I made. If you want to know why, if you don't know, this is the first video that you see of me. There's a hour-long video that I made, and I explain why I stopped making videos and why I stopped painting for a while in October. But this was the last one I made, and I just basically, this whole painting was supposed to be darker, but not completely black. I didn't want a completely black background like I did in the very first one, in the Garden Witch, because I wanted to use the foliage to have it be in white. That is a very interesting sentence there. I wanted the foliage to be white and the background to be a little bit, you know, darker, but not black. That's my point. Goodness, lots of talking here. I'm trying to rush a little bit because this video is already 20 minutes long. And we are only 2/3 of the way through it. Day 22. Surprisingly, for the day that it was, the picture, I absolutely love it. This was another one. This was supposed to be a picture that, like a break picture, so it was a Sunday, but it turned out to be a week-long break because I haven't made any. I didn't make any more videos. So this is a rabbit witch, and it's either a witch that can turn into a rabbit or is just an actual rabbit witch. I haven't decided on that yet, but I really love it. I love how cute this rabbit is, and for such a simple idea. This thing took quite a long time to finish just because of all the little fur bits. Like the fur is made in 3 layers, and took forever to finish. And from here on out, all these pictures are pretty much a catch-up, because I stopped painting. Actually, I didn't stop painting for that long. It was only 2 days, but it took me quite a long time to catch up, and that's because I had problems with focusing for a long time. That's just my thing. If I keep going, it's fine, but if I have to catch up to something, it's just a pain. So it took me a while, and this one is a day 23. Fits my mood perfectly because it's a witch of thorns. Just basically lots of flowers and thorns, and a very simple character because the focus was on the frame. And initially there was no thorns there. I've added them just because I wanted to be extra prickly. No, seriously, I felt so bad. I felt so down. This was my mood on that day. Next we have this socialite witch, which is basically a very high-class witch. And I wanted her to have lots of patterns on her, lots of glittery jewels. And I really liked because the background frame is a mirror or a portal or something like that. I didn't feel like drawing the reflections, so you get the idea. But I really like how the frame on both the mirror and the a staff. I can't remember the name. And the staff, like they are both having runes on them. I love drawing runes. They're just random. They come naturally and they're completely random. Next we have the Moon Bunny Witch, and I fell in love with the bunny from day 22. So this was another follow-up, because even though this was a sketch drawn before Inktober started, well, this one was just an idea I picked up on the way. So, but I wanted to draw more bunnies, and so I did. Here we have, this is a problematic witch because I've called her a deer spirit witch, but it just doesn't sound right. Technically it's a forest witch, but I already had a forest witch, so I didn't want to repeat that. But let's say it's a deer spirit witch. And I just wanted to draw a different kind of fur, just because until now all the fur I drawn was very smooth, or in the case of bunnies, short but smooth. And here I wanted to have it a bit more clumpy, a bit more, yeah, I just wanted to see how it would look like. And so this little girl came out to be. Oh yes, this is my my only non-pointy hat. Although I tried to, well, it's not really like I tried to, but I tried to have a play on the pointy hat again by adding an item on top that would make the point. And that was the cat, because I really wanted the hat to be a spool. Just a spool with her hair or something just wrapped around it. I thought it would look really cool, and it does, but it breaks that whole pointy thing that I had going. And this whole picture, the thing that I wanted the most here was that shiny, sparkly thread. And I feel like everything else is the background. So, but I really love how that shine here looks like. It looks really, really magical. Another thing I really liked about drawing, although it was a pain because it just took way too much time, were the roses on the fabric that she's holding. And yeah, that's all I can tell you. So, witch number 28, which is well, the term for it will be a mummy witch. I wanted to go for something a little bit more scary again, although she kind of reminds me like she's like wrapped in toilet paper. I can't get that image out of my head, so well, she's a mummy witch. So the whole idea for her was actually, even though the ideas for both of these pictures were conceived before Inktober, well, I really wanted to use the same effect like here with the thread, and that's why it's on these bandages. I almost said toilet paper. Almost, it's on these bandages because I really like the sparkly effect, and that's why I did it. Okay, so day number 29 is the waiting witch. And I kind of imagine her to be waiting for like a bus or a train, or maybe for someone. She's ready to leave her cottage, castle, whatever. And the idea actually from her that came, I wanted to draw a character with a little bit of a dumb look on her face, kind of like, not really dumb, like more of a absent-minded. It kind of reminds me of all the times when I was waiting for the train, and you know, I had to wait for a very long time and my mind would wander, and sometimes I just wondered if how silly I would look when I would just like look up and, you know, just you know, I wouldn't pay attention to how my face looked like and how it would look like to other people. I think about stuff like that. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay. So this picture was another attempt at a kind of a nighttime scene, but this time I had this shining broom, just because once again I wanted to use the same effect as here. So that kind of ruined this whole concept for me, but I tried to, you know, not to have too much contrast between all the other parts, except here in the middle, so you can see there is a little bit of shine here and there, although not in the places that you would expect it to be. You know, her... never mind. You know, I was tired by that time, so it looks pretty. I love it, so that's enough for me. One thing I really like about this picture are the earrings. Just because that's one of the things I haven't painted at all during this challenge is metal. And I never really thought about metal in tonal value way. So actually having these pieces in black and white to look like metal, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just because I know that they're made of gold or silver or whatever, one of the metals. So maybe I know about it and that's why it looks like that to me, but I really like it. I was really proud of myself when I finished this one. Wait, and I'm hitting the microphone. The microphone is very nicely positioned just in front of me, so I don't see my workspace at all. And I actually look into the camera view just to see what I'm showing you guys is kind of centered. Okay, so the day 30 is a Lolita witch. And this was all about getting those kind of subtle textures made by overflowing ink. So there are a few things that I've discovered throughout the time when I was painting with ink. I don't remember exactly which... I can't really remember which one it was at this point, but... one thing I've, you know, of course I knew that ink doesn't dilute once it dries, at least not the black Indian ink that I was using. So it's waterproof, so it doesn't dilute anymore like watercolor would, for example. But something that actually I have discovered by mistake is that one time I tried to dilute it and it left little black specks. Actually, I think it was... yeah, it wasn't this one. You can barely see them because, you know, they are very, very small. And I'm going to try next time to actually use them in a bigger form. But the wash worked and it had an additional little black spots in it. Perfect texture for trees. I loved it so much. Like this. And so that made me think what other textures I could use, you know, just by doing different stuff. Because of course I was dropping ink into the water at some point. But I wasn't really, I was mostly painting with flat washes just because I was kind of rushing and I was tired. I didn't feel like experimenting anymore, especially in the second part of the challenge. So because this thing was a catch-up, I was a little bit more rested, and this is a second to last picture. Actually, it was the last picture because this one was painted earlier. So this was the last picture, and I felt like I was close to, you know, finishing the challenge, and I could spare a little bit more time on this one. And so I started overflowing everything. I just, by overflowing, what I mean is that I would have a very, very, very thick layer of wash, and I would just drop it in that one area and wait for it to dry. That's why you have those darker edges on everything. And I love this effect. Kind of reminded me of that grungy feeling that I tried to achieve with the Urban Witch. So I tried to push it as far as I could, and I love this. I love making this picture because it was supposed to be like this sweet Lolita, and it turned out to be completely the opposite. And I feel like it actually looks a little bit more on the like, not on the spooky side, I would say, but it just has that dirtiness about it that, you know, Lolita is not supposed to have, and unless she's a special kind. So this one here, it's actually the last video I made, and this was an hour-long special, just because I wanted to make up a little bit for all the days I've missed. And this one kind of reminds me of the American Pilgrims. Just because, you know, the neck piece here and the hat, the blackness of the hat, I don't know, it's just kind of something that reminded me. Yeah, it was just a very simple illustration. I really liked this area here around the fire, because it came to me really naturally, because I was talking at the same time while painting, and I wasn't really overthinking it at all. So I was very happy with how this came out. Yeah, so that's the 30 illustrations. Very, very messy over here, but that's all of them. I'm very, very happy that I've accomplished it, actually. And so at the very last moment, oh, that's the very last thing I wanted to talk about. We're very, very late. This is a very long video again. But the very last thing I wanted to talk about were actually my what goals I've achieved, because it was a hectic time, actually, for me to do Inktober, just because it was the first challenge of this kind. I actually thought at first, because I've done a 30-day sketchbook challenge before that I've turned into a series of videos, and I thought that it would be a similar experience, but it wasn't. It wasn't even close. It was much harder. I saw someone mentioning, one of the YouTubers mentioned that it's more of a stamina challenge. It's a stamina-based challenge, and that it can't be closer to the truth. It's just, for me, I was tired, not only physically, but mentally, of course. Mentally, actually, that's kind of a given, right? Because you are pushing yourself, but physically, especially that the first few days, you know, I was struggling with my eyesight for some reason. It's not a problem anymore, but it was in those first days. Every day I would wake up with a headache. That would, of course, affect my the tempo and the stuff I was doing. Yeah, so let's just make a little bit of a recap. My goals for this challenge were to learn more about ink and basically become comfortable-ish, just more comfortable painting with ink. I wanted to get to know the medium, just because it is so similar to watercolor, and yet it seemed so daunting to me. Another thing I wanted to achieve was, of course, paint the 31 illustrations in 31 days, which kind of failed, but I've managed to catch up, so I count that as a half a point, if we are keeping point systems, of course. And then I wanted to make 31 videos. I made 20, not even 21. Let's say I got to day 21, okay? So that's also, I feel, half a point. So all in all, I would say that this Inktober was very successful, even though I haven't technically finished Inktober, because I feel like Inktober is a challenge to paint for every day of October. So for me, my personal opinion is that I haven't finished Inktober, even though I finished the illustrations. I painted the illustrations. It's amazing. It's an amazing achievement. I am so proud of myself, and I'm not afraid to say so. But I feel like next year, you know, we will try again, maybe in a different way, just to, you know, because obviously what I did this year didn't work. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for today, for this year. Okay, this is pretty much it. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna be making videos. I will be making videos. We'll be coming back with a regular schedule soon. Hopefully. I'm kind of, just because of all the stuff that I had to catch up on, I'm just a little bit behind with videos, but you know, we'll get in there. So thank you so much for the amazing support that you guys have shown me. I honestly very firmly believe that I wouldn't be able to finish it if it wasn't for you guys, just because having all the people counting on the videos and supporting them and supporting me and kind of keeping me positive and motivated, it really get me going, and I'm so very thankful. So thank you so much for it, guys. And I really hope that I'm going to have another one like that next year, because even though it was tiring, it was definitely a very valuable experience, and yeah, it definitely was worth it. So yeah, I will finish at that. Thank you so very much for watching, guys, and I will see you hopefully very soon in the next video. Bye!